Hello, everybody. Welcome to StraightA. Dawson here. Back here with NFL Recap Week 12 edition. And this, of course, Thanksgiving week, Thanksgiving games. Really good set of games here today. All 16 teams, or all 32 teams played in 16 games. So, really cool. And we'll kind of recap and go through. And part of these kind of recaps, I'm going to implement more of the playoff chances and the ESPN Eliminator Challenge, stuff like that, just because I'm getting rolling with new content here soon, and I really want to have time to kind of put towards that. So it's going to kind of all get clumped together here on the recap videos. But speaking of Week 12, since I was with family and there was my dad's a big football guy, I got to watch a lot, of course, all the Thanksgiving games, and then of course the Black Friday game, and then I actually watched a lot of the Sunday games, which is really fun. So this is probably the most football I've watched in a hot minute. So really good to kind of be back in the smooth and groove of things. And NFL Week 12 was overall an enjoyable week. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of middle ground. And so during this, I'm going to talk about some of these teams and where I kind of expect them to kind of turn up, because at this point, no one's been eliminated from the playoffs and no one's solidified their playoffs just yet. Technically, of course, most teams need to win out and have like every other team lose out. But beside the case here, there are still a chance for every team in the NFL, and I kind of want to talk about that in the future of some of these teams, and maybe that's going to be a separate video as well. But NFL Week 12 is a good 2/3 of the way recap here. Kind of went over the stats yesterday, but it's time to go over in the Week 12. Starting off, of course, with the first Thanksgiving game with the Packers upsetting the Lions 29-22. It's a divisional game. It was pretty good, but Packers were leading this pretty much the whole way. Lions were kind of getting some kind of energy going kind of in the second half, but the Packers were just playing to a whole nother level. That game, they just looked really, really good. Jordan Love, 22 for 32, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like I said, a hell of a game for Jordan Love. Really looked good. And the defense for the Lions did not look very good at all. Run game, they really didn't get anything going too much with the run game. Jordan Love looked good in the scramble, but otherwise not too anything special. Receiving, Christian Watson finally seems like he's kind of getting the smooth and groove of things again. I'm using smooth and groove a lot anyway. But it looks like he's looking back into more prime Christian Watson, what we kind of would expect from him. So good to see that he got a pretty good, decent game here. Defensively, the Packers just did really well. I think there was only 3 sacks in this whole game, and Rashawn Gary was the person to do all of that. So pretty nice to see here. In the case of the Lions here, Jared Goff had a good game. I mean, I can't put too much of this on Jared Goff. He had pretty good game, 332 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he really picked up steam more in the second half, and at that point they were down quite a few scores. I mean, by the second half, 23-6 was the score. So it was a hard battle to come back up. The run game, again, the run game is solid. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs together have been doing awesome, and they're going to continue to do awesome, splitting about those yards, and one of them getting the touchdown probably each game is kind of how this will go. And the receiving game looked really good, and it really, when it came down to it, is I think the offense just did not find their groove until the second half, and the defense just did not play up to the standards that they needed to. I'm not saying the defense for the Lions is good or bad. It's kind of more middle ground, probably on the edge of bad, but more below average is what I should say. But they just really didn't play to how they needed to this game, and it ended up costing them a win. And overall, both these teams are actually looking good trajectory. Lions are still probably going to solidify the top of the NFC North, while the Packers could get that 7th spot in the wild card for the playoffs. So they're looking better in the second half. They kind of looked good in the beginning, looked bad in the middle so far, and now they're kind of looking good lately. So maybe they can get something going and really make the playoffs. Next up, we have a slaughter fest from the Cowboys going 45-10 over the Commanders. Actually kept it decently close. I don't want to say decently close, but it was a good game in the first half, 20-10, and then the Cowboys in the fourth quarter just dominated, absolute dominating. Anyway, on the Washington side of things, 3 things are true in the world: death, taxes, and Sam Howell throwing for 300-plus yards. Granted, it was 300 on a dot, but it was 300 yards. The run game, Brian Robinson's just not seeing the efficiency. I guess he's kind of iffy on how efficient he really is and how much involvement he gets. Antonio Gibson, of course, coming back into play more so, does put his production down, or does put Brian Robinson's production down a little bit. But, again, between Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, with Sam Howell, he throws a lot of guards, so they're all going to get a little bit of love, but one of them gets more love every week, and Curtis Samuel was the lucky recipient of this week. In terms of defensively, the Commanders really just did not play well. It was probably one of the worst defensive showings I've seen from the Commanders this season, and that's saying something from some of the games they've had. But, I mean, I can't really fault them too much, because when Dak Prescott casually goes a 330-plus game with 4 touchdowns, honestly, and this is something I'm really stating really for serious, Dak Prescott needs to be more in the MVP conversations. His stats are there. His interceptions aren't as high as they usually are, and they're winning games. So I think he needs to be more in the conversation, like a top 5 candidate, but beside the point. Other than that, Tony Pollard had one of his probably most efficient games of the year. So it was awesome to see. Receiving wise, Brandon Cooks continues to actually have, revive his career a little bit, so that's nice to see. CeeDee Lamb found the end zone, which was nice. Outside of that, they had a pretty good committee. But defensively, the Cowboys just absolutely annihilated the Commanders. Even though I think they only picked up like 4 sacks here in this game, and 1 turnover from Darren Bland, by the way, breaking the record. Darren Bland, round of applause here. Love it. Love to see it. That was actually a really awesome moment to capture, in live. But the sacks weren't necessarily there because Commanders' offensive line is, by the way, not very good at all. But they just pressured them constantly. In that fourth quarter, the most dominating thing I've ever seen the defense do. So, well, I guess I shouldn't say that since week 1 and week 2 exist. But beside the point, the Dallas Cowboys definitely solidified this, and they're definitely going to make the playoffs. And if they can show this efficiency throughout the playoffs, they have a real shot at going to the conference championship and even further into the Super Bowl. So they just need to keep up this offensive showing, and the defense keep on doing what they're doing. Commanders, I think their season's pretty much over. They have, I don't know about their future. The future is kind of bright. I think they could see more of a 9-8, 10-7 in the future, but more in the 9-8, 8-9 category. But this season's pretty much dead and over with. Next, of course, the 49ers and Seahawks, and I'll be honest, this game was probably the least interesting one I've watched all weekend. I really was hoping the Seahawks would have a better showing, but 31-13, 49ers pick up the win. Not too much. I mean, Brock Purdy did Brock Purdy things. Christian McCaffrey did Christian McCaffrey things, probably with an extra touchdown on average. Debo was the guy that really got fed this game. I'd say CMC obviously probably is the one that got more fed, but Debo and CMC were really the big stories here. I'd say Debo got a lot of love, and I love seeing it. Brandon Ayuk, of course, got the touchdown, though, so it does help in terms of fantasy value. George Kittle didn't find too much, but, I mean, again, you can't have everybody eat the same game. The 49ers defense, holy crap. I mean, after the Browns' performance this week, it might just come down to the 49ers and Cowboys defense about who's better. Now, granted, it's depending on the given week, especially Myles Garrett being hurt now, but 49ers, I think, just are so good. And the 49ers defense has just been picking it up more and more, especially with the turnover in the air. So it's, more or less what you're going to see from the 49ers. Seahawks, meanwhile, Genos did not have a good game. I think he got hurt near the end of it, but I don't remember exactly, or if my brain's just recalling a little bit. Zach Charbonnet is getting volume, but not getting a whole ton of love in terms of how well he's doing with that. Meanwhile, Jackson Smith and Jigba, of course, found the most yardage. DK was thrown to so many times this game, and it was always overthrown or thrown just out of bounds. I think DK did drop one. It was kind of unfortunate to see. I will say that. Defensively, though, the Seahawks, again, just did not do anything. Yeah, sure, they got 1 sack, but the Seahawks defense did not keep up with the offensive line of the 49ers, which was very unfortunate. So, Seahawks, they still have a good chance, but they're losing momentum quickly, and they could lose that spot to a Packers-type team if they're not very careful. 49ers are solidifying themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC, and while I don't think anybody outside the Eagles is going to get that NFC number 1 seed, basically, the 49ers have a really good shot at being the number 2, number 3 seed, or number 2 seed especially, but number 3 seed, at least. Beside the point, 49ers win 31-13. Black Friday game was kind of unfortunate. Dolphins win 34-13. I mean, I like seeing the Dolphins do well, and Tua did pretty good. I mean, he's in the MVP conversation for a reason. Raheem Mostert had a very efficient, very good game. Jeff Wilson Jr. came back and is really doing well. Love to see it. Receiving wise, Jalen Waddle finally is getting more looks and more love here. Outside just Tyreek Hill, got more yardage actually than Tyreek Hill, but he did not find the end zone, unlike Tyreek Hill. Outside of that, though, the committee is pretty much nothing else. If you look at this game, Jeff Wilson Jr., it's either Chuck down to Jeff Wilson or Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, which is very one-dimensional and can easily backfire in the future. But it worked this game. Defense of the Dolphins had a step-up type game. Now, granted, the Jets looked horrible. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to give too much credit to the Dolphins here. Similar to the Broncos game, because the Jets looked horrible. Broncos looked horrible in the 70-20 game. The Jets looked horrible here. They let so many sacks on the offensive line. Seemed like they didn't even care to. They threw so many picks. And, of course, when you have Tim Boyle back there, and I'm just going to say this now. Listen, I get the hate on Zach Wilson, but keep him in. Believe in him. Give him the full season. If you keep on doing this stuff, this is similar to the Patriots mindset. You got to trust in him. If you don't think Tim Boyle is going to be a future answer at all, then don't keep him in. Zach Wilson at least has that potential out there, and so keep him in, even if it means it sucks. You're at 4-7. What do you have to fucking lose? Aaron Rodgers ain't going to come back and play for the playoffs because right now 4-7 is really bad for the AFC. And at this point, like if you're a contender, you need to be at least 5-6, 6-6, 5, 6-5, whatever. You need to be in that category to really have a decent shot because 6-5 isn't even the 7th seed yet. Like a lot of 6-5 seeds are not in the 7th seed, and you're 4-7. That's 2 wins behind. That's not going to be doable for the playoffs. And the Jets just have to figure that out and say, all right, well, it's time to go back to the drawing board. Beside the point, Tim Boyle, he existed. They didn't have a run game, and the receiving obviously hurt from Tim Boyle. And, well, Garrett Wilson did find the end zone, so that was kind of cool. Defensively, though, Jets did horrible. The Jets defense probably looked one of the worst it has all season. 2 sacks, 1 interception, sure, but other than that, like, they just could not touch the Dolphins at all. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle running routes around them. And I say routes, more like streaks around them. So, take that as you will. Dolphins, again, gaining momentum. They just need to have a prove-it game. They haven't really had that yet. Jets and Raiders have been at least they can keep in the conversation, but more so. But either way, 34-13. The start of our Monday slate ends up with the Buccaneers. The Colts winning against the Buccaneers 27-20. And not too much to talk about this game. Baker, I think he's actually hurt right now with some sort of minor injury. Didn't do too amazing, but didn't do horrible, I guess. Rachaad White hit one of the best games I've seen from him. Pretty good, efficient game as well. Receiving-wise, Mike Evans, of course, getting all the love. Cade Otto, though, continues to be, kind of in that picture for them. Defensively, Bucks kind of just dropping off. Not to say the Buccaneers had a strong defense before, but it's just that they're not keeping up. They're not being very efficient at all in multiple games in a row, and that's not what we need to see. Meanwhile, speaking of teams that kind of have surprised me in one way, the Colts have been surprising me very well in the positive direction. Gardner Minshew has been a very suitable replacement. 250 yards is nothing to sneeze at. Did throw a pick, but it happens. Jonathan Taylor is back and more efficient than ever. Zach Moss getting a little bit of love again. Maybe it's going to be more of a 2/3, 2/3 to Jonathan Taylor, 1/3 to Zach Moss committee. That'd be really good for them because Jonathan Taylor is the backbone, but Zach Moss can be maybe that lightning strike that they need. So Jonathan Taylor, of course, very efficient and getting 2 touchdowns, so that's really awesome. Michael Pittman, very good game for him. While, of course, Josh Downs did get a little bit of love, Michael Pittman continues to be the main target there for the Indianapolis Colts. Defensively, the Colts did really, really good against the Buccaneers, against a good offensive line for the Buccaneers, and that's one thing I can really say about the Bucs is that they have a decent offensive line. And the Colts actually did really well in quelling that. Now, their rush game wasn't the best against a mediocre running back in Rachaad White, but happens to the best of us. Colts still put up 27 points, were able to solidify this. And while I don't think the Colts are going to end up being that playoff contention team, I do think they have a very promising future, especially with Anthony Richardson coming back next year. Get him kind of solidified and keep him healthy. This team has a lot to build on. Buccaneers-wise, they really started hot, but now they have just pretty much extinguished any momentum they had or any possibility. They can technically still make the playoffs because their division's so bad. Like, the division is like 5-6, I believe, is the best record. I can't remember exactly, but Bucks aren't totally out of it, but they're going to win. They need to win this year because I think they're not going to have many more years after this to really do something. Hopefully Baker sticks around, or hopefully they figure out something with that Baker situation. Either way, both these teams are very interesting in this regard, but Colts do take the victory. Next up, we have the New England Patriots go to the New York Giants, and sure, this is a game also exists. The New York Giants are keeping my bet alive at them going 7-10. So, I mean, maybe it'll happen, especially if they keep on, at least winning against these bad teams. Beside the point, pitiful game, very, very pitiful game. I do have a few things to say about this because I didn't watch all of it, but I did catch a little bit of it. Patriots are probably going to end up being one of the worst teams in the NFL, and it's just because they don't believe in either quarterback. They play Mac Jones, sit him in like the third quarter, second quarter, whatever it is, probably third quarter. Bailey Zappi then comes in, plays, he just throws chuck down passes, short passes, safe passes, whatever. They don't believe in either one of their quarterbacks. They don't believe in either one of them. They both threw 3 picks combined, but it's similar to Zach Wilson case. Keep Mac Jones in, keep Bailey Zappi in, believe in somebody. Malik Cunningham, put somebody in and say, you are the guy. You're going to keep on sitting Mac Jones and make him feel like shit every week. And it's going to drive everybody insane. It's going to drive Patriots fans insane, I'm sure. I should talk to Ryan more about this and what he feels, but he's probably just going to feel pain. So, simple to the point, stick with a guy, man. You're probably going to get a top 2 pick and probably pick up a quarterback anyway, whatever. But still, at least trying to build one of these guys. Maybe to be a good trade fodder or a good backup. But right now, you're just producing some of the worst QB play in the whole league. Outside of that little nitpick, Ramondre Stevenson had a pretty good game. Probably one of his better games of the season so far. He's just been mediocre. The Patriots' offense has been very, more so playing passing game because they've had to. But the run game has a lot of efficiency. Zeke is also a nice little addition right behind Ramondre. So if they utilize that more, they could do well. Outside of that, they have nobody to throw to, so I'm not going to comment to that. And Patriots defense, I mean, granted, this is like two very mediocre offenses playing against each other, so good. But the Patriots defense did seem to play, from the things I did see, well against one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So, I mean, take that as you will. But the Giants, Tommy DeVito, he's not the worst QB in the league. I'll give him that. I mean, he's been showcasing that maybe he's not awful. So that's a plus side. Saquon didn't get too many opportunities here. Receiving wise, Jalen Hyatt, cool, 21.8 on average. Really cool to see Jalen Hyatt do. I guess that's he exists. Defensively, I mean, again, both these teams are facing off against some of the worst offensive lines, and obviously 3 picks does help a lot. But I would say it's more a discredit to the Patriots than it was a credit for the Giants. Either way, very pitiful. Both these team seasons are over, and they have to look forward to a first-round pick, a really high first-round pick. That's all I'm really going to say on that one. Another disappointing game in one regard, because I hate seeing the Bengals do so poorly, but I love seeing the Steelers do well, because Kenny Pickett now is able to do stuff without Matt Canada, putting up a very, very good game of 400 plus yards of just offense, which is really good to see. Kenny Pickett, 278 yards, no touchdowns, but no picks, and he's that's what he's good. He's good at efficiency, but he's just not great in the end zone yet. He's not great in the red zone action yet, and that's fine, because when you have Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, one of them's going to have a good game, and Najee Harris was having a hell of a game today. They're believing more in their team and not just running screens, not just running little simple chuck downs or simple 5 yard curls. They're running good plays and that are actually going to get them yards. Pat Freiermuth, now he's back. He's 120 yards. 9 receptions. I hated him in the beginning because he wasn't doing anything for me in fantasy, but I'm glad he's back, and he's looking good. And finally, he might be the number 1 option for Kenny Pickett. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, of course, are good receivers, but they're not to that elite level where they can really do a lot of sufficient stuff. So Pat Freiermuth might be that nice little tight end that that Kenny Pickett really needs to stay good and stay consistent. And Kenny Pickett has a lot of potential here, and they're sticking with him, and I like to see it. As you're talking about the Patriots and Jets like that, I'm glad to see that a mediocre quarterback in Kenny Pickett is actually being developed, and he's doing well doing it. Defensively, of course, the Steelers are going to always boast up some good numbers, but I mean, when the Bengals have a not very good offensive line and a not good quarterback, helps. Jake Browning, I can't say that he wasn't at least efficient. I mean, only 1 interception and 1 touchdown, 227 yards. Not horrible, 19 for 26. Not bad. It's just that they play too safe, too conservative, and just playing too many dumb plays. And, of course, they got behind, and they didn't utilize the rushing game at all. So that's the kind of lesson learned there. Of course, the only person that really ate anything was Jamar Chase, but even then, he didn't eat too much there. Meanwhile, defensively, Bengals, I mean, they've been never known for their defense, but they've always been known for their offense. It's just that with their defense in the current state it is, an offense without Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals might be looking at a done season, while the Steelers are looking at a very good season. They have a chance to take their division, but I think the Ravens are still going to eke that out, but Steelers are still looking very efficient, especially with the Browns kind of on the more downhill than the uphill. Steelers might be able to squeeze out a second-round placement here, or second divisional placement. So, kind of keeping on the kind of the mediocre trail, kind of go down a little bit here. The Carolina Panthers go to Tennessee, take a loss, 10-17. Unfortunately, it's sad to see. It is sad to see, and actually, believe it or not, Carolina's not out of the playoff picture purely because of how bad their division is. So that's fun to see, I guess. Man, Bryce Young, I wish he was in a better situation. I'm not going to blame anything on Bryce Young. He's a first-year QB who had a lot of pressure put on him in a bad situation. Simple and to the point, a bad coaching situation too. Frank Wright was fired, so hopefully a new head coach can come in and really help utilize Bryce Young better and develop him better. But I'm not going to really say much more on Bryce Young for probably the remainder of the season. He's just been a disappointing prospect, not necessarily because of him. He definitely is somebody who deserves a couple of years to get rolling, especially in the situation the Panthers are currently at. Run game, there's really nothing. Jonathan Mingo, he's getting involved, so that's awesome. Adam Thielen only got 1 reception, which is kind of interesting, but at least they're kind of utilizing some of the other receivers on the game, so Bryce Young isn't just throwing to Adam Thielen. so cool to see. Defensively, Panthers, again, they're just getting demolished. One of the worst defenses in the league. Titans, Will Levis is at least, he's a QB who's not being stupid. That's more to say than probably about a quarter of the league. Derrick Henry, though, I mean, he's going to have those good games where he just smashes through this defensive line of the Panthers, which is not surprising. DeAndre Hopkins continues to be the number one option, but a little bit of loves from Okunwo, sure, and Nick Westbrook, of course, getting a lot of love. Defensively, Titans are a good run defense, but they actually got to the quarterback a little bit. Obviously, the offensive line for the Panthers is nothing to sneeze at, but they did pretty good. Tennessee overall is very efficient, and while I do think both of these team seasons are over, I do think the Panthers have a lot to build on, or have a lot to need to build on, I should say, after trading away basically everything to get Bryce Young. And then Tennessee needs to figure out something. I'm not going to say they're in a bad situation. They're just in that awkward phase where I don't know if they're ready for a rebuild, but they're not really a playoff contention team. Simple to the point. Then again, I thought about that about the Colts, so we'll see where the Titans land. But either way, they won this game. All right, we're only halfway through this game, so I got to speed up a little bit. Jaguars, Texans, really good game. Jaguars took it home 24-21. Kind of the stories of this, Trevor Lawrence had a hell of a game. Good to see him really get back in efficiency. Travis Etienne is just not the answer here. He's not been doing too well. Calvin Ridley, really good game from him. Good to see him kind of getting back in the full swing of things. Christian Kirk, though, is still a very good second option for them all. Meanwhile, defensively, one of the best defensive showings from the Jags, probably mostly because of Josh Allen getting to C.J. Stroud and really keeping him down. Was it about 4 sacks overall to C.J. Stroud, and like a offensive line for the Texans. But I can't say anything too bad about C.J. Stroud because 304 yards and 2 touchdowns, really good. And not much on the ground game, but he's good. But C.J. Stroud ran it in, of course. Receiving wise, Nico Collins actually got the love this game over Tank Dell and Devin Singletary, but still not too bad. Defensively, definitely a weaker game from the defense, but I mean, Jaguars are one of the top offenses, or at least top potential offenses in the league. So, of course, bound to be some difficulties there. Unfortunately, the Texans could have taken it to overtime. They did put a lot of trust in their kicker, which was like a 56-yard field goal. The longest that this kicker ever made was like 53. So, I don't know if that was the right call. I think they should have gone for the first down, but it was a tough situation, and maybe the kick was just the reliable thing to do, but didn't get quite enough. Either way, do think the Jags played overall better to deserve the win here, but both these teams still in a big playoff race. I think Jags pretty much have solidified their division, but the Texans, nothing to sneeze at. They still have a couple good games. They can possibly eke out some wins here next couple weeks. Broncos are a good example, or if they solidify those kind of wins, they can definitely get that easy wild card spot. Saints at Falcons. This is a very despite the score 24-15, very boring game. Both these teams are 5-6, so it shows you again the Bucs are not too far behind these two teams. But both a very just boring, disappointing game. Derek Carr threw for 300 plus yards, but still does nothing with it. Alvin Kamara had a fine game, but not anything amazing. Chris Olave was the big story on the side of the Saints. He was actually getting a lot of love. So really good to see that he's really developing into a kind of a superstar caliber receiver. Defensively, though, I don't think either one of these teams played too well. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu did pick off twice. I mean, I think one of those was for a touchdown, too. So I can't remember. 10. No, I guess that wouldn't make sense. So I guess not. Either way, I thought he did, but I didn't watch too much of this game. The parts I did watch, the highlights were just not very good. Desmond Ridder, 21 attempts, 13, catches, I guess. 168 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Boring. Bijan, he's doing good. I like seeing Bijan do well. He's not nothing like too amazing, but he had a pretty damn good game here, especially with a touchdown there. But he was one of the main receivers outside of Drake London. So, I mean, I guess, Drake throw it to Drake London. If he's not available, Bijan or Kyle Pitts will be there. And you got a couple other people who get now and then a little bit of loving from the Falcons offense. Defensively, though, one of the weaker showings. It's a hard secondary to play against for the Saints, but really didn't do too much, I'll be honest. Jesse Bates, of course, got the pick. So take that as you will. But I don't know if I really think Falcons haven't been playing up to their potential, and if they keep on doing that, I don't know if we can really call them a really good secondary. But I think it's good enough for now. Maybe it's also to do with the defensive line being fine, not really good. So we'll see. But again, more of a lackluster game from the NFC South. No surprise there. Talk about slaughter fest. The Rams absolutely destroyed the Cardinals here, and I tell you, the big story of this game was not Matthew Stafford with 4 touchdowns, believe it or not. 229 yards, 4 touchdowns, really good. There's a story of Kyron Williams coming back, 16 carries for 143 yards. I sat him in fantasy, as well as probably a couple people did. I'm sure not everybody did. Probably smart people didn't sit him. But I was dumb in one of my leagues. Granted, it wasn't a very important league. Beside the point. 143 yards, and he didn't even get the touchdown. Royce Freeman got the fucking touchdown. He split carries with Royce Freeman and pretty much almost like doubled his yardage. Fucking crazy. Anyway, beside the point. Outside of that, receiving wise, Kyron Williams also was big in the receiving game. That's the big thing. He came back and was in the ground on the ground game. Didn't get the rushing touchdown, is what my kind of point was. He got the fucking receiving touchdown. Not only that, he was their leading receiver as a running back. Kyron Williams looked insane, was insane. Highlights from this is like basically Kyron Williams' love letter. And good to see him kind of getting that back. Cooper Kupp really didn't play all too much. Puka, disappointing to see kind of him getting not as many looks nowadays, but fair enough. Tutu had a decent game. But again, all Kyron Williams with a little bit of Tyler Higbee in the end zone. That's basically what it came down to. Rams defense actually played decently well. Granted, I guess the Cardinals offense isn't the best, but I don't think it's anything not to sneeze at. I love seeing Kyler Murray, though. As bad as the game was for the Cardinals, I'm seeing flashes of Kyler Murray. And this is kind of what I expected from Deshaun Watson, was Deshaun Watson builds up, has a couple off games, but builds up overall. This is what we're seeing from Kyler. That is what he's doing. He's not just going out there and being flashy and being the best player on the field. He is building himself up and being the player he needs to be. He's not just going out there and trying to be too much and inevitably not doing good. You can see the work that Kyler Murray has been putting in. Even though, again, the defenses he's been playing haven't been necessarily best, he's been doing what he needs to do to build himself back up to the quarterback he needs to be. This is what development's all about, and Kyler Murray's doing it. The run game outside of that was nothing for the offense of the Cardinals. Hollywood Brown, of course, getting a little bit of love. Trey McBride, though, also becoming a decent point for the offense here. Defensively, though, the Cardinals, nothing to sneeze at. I think ever since the first few weeks, they've kind of just been going downhill from there. Kind of more what we expect nowadays. Beside the point, though, good to see from both these teams. Again, both their seasons are pretty much over, but there's some potential there. Broncos country, let's ride. All right, the Denver Broncos picked up the win 29-12 in a very decent, I don't want to say, okay, it was decent for me because I love seeing how well our defense was playing. Beside the point, it wasn't the most interesting game of the week by far. Browns played very, very horribly. Myles Garrett's out now, and the defense of the Browns just did not keep up this game. It's just simple to the point. Denver Broncos played well, but I'm not going to say it was just a hard-fought game. It was they got kind of given the game. They put Dorian Thompson. I forgot, did he get hurt or did he get benched? That's I always forget which exactly happens for these type of games, so I really don't pay attention to the Browns. But P.J. Walker either way is going to be I believe he got benched. I believe that's what happened. And they put P.J. Walker in. And neither one was going to be great this week, especially with P.J. Walker coming in. But beside the point, it wasn't anything special when Dorian Thompson was out there, 14 for 29, 134 yards. Nothing too great. The run game was still very efficient against the Broncos. It's still something they need to work on because the Browns have a decent run game committee. When Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt can get split carries, they can do pretty well. Receiving-wise, David Njoku probably is the best person they have with Amari Cooper being out for now. Defensively, like I said, this was not the Browns' defensive game. 100% not. And I can't really say there was too much good on the offense for the Broncos. I mean, Russell Wilson, 134 yards, 1 touchdown. Not the splashiest player. He's just being out there and going out there and just doing whatever. The run game was very efficient. Russell Wilson even rushed it for 11 times and 1 touchdown. That's kind of where the defense did kind of come out with the Browns. They did rush Wilson out. They just really couldn't catch with him, and he was able to get a few yards every time. Javonte Williams, very efficient. Samaje Perine came in for a little bit and was pretty efficient there. Other than that, the receiving game, Courtland Sutton continues to be the main option, but, it's a whole committee here with the very few receptions that people do get. Meanwhile, the defense, like I said, was pretty efficient. About 4 sacks, but no interceptions here. I believe there was a fumble as well. So, the Broncos defense is just picking it back up and getting turnovers. And I actually saw a stat where I think they have some of the most turnover recoveries, fumble-wise, I think, in the league. Or the most efficient. I forgot exactly what the stat was. But Broncos are doing well in capitalizing on moments. that they really need to in actually getting them to the end zone or getting them into very good field position. So it's pretty much all defensively from the Broncos this game, with, of course, 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns overall from this side. But the defense of the Broncos really picked up a lot of things here and doing well. So it was good to see a really hard-fought game. If the Browns keep on playing to this level, they're going to lose their playoff spot. And the Broncos are kind of solidifying that 8-9 spot right now. They could easily do well. They have a tough couple. There's a couple games that are kind of worrisome, but if they keep playing to this efficiency, they might be able to actually squeak into the playoffs. But it's a hard AFC matchups that they are going to be facing off against. Man. This is a fun-ass game. This is easily game of the week. There's no doubt about that. And I do wish the Bills won. I do think the Eagles deserve the win, obviously. But the Bills, it's just sad seeing them at 6-6. They're such a good team, but 6-6, they don't feel like it. And they might just miss the playoffs. After all this hard work they've been doing, they might just miss the playoffs. Josh Allen, 29 for 51, 339 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Rush game from Josh Allen, sorry. Rush game from James Cook wasn't very good, but Josh Allen really made up for it in the ground game. Receiving-wise, Gabe Davis unfortunately missed a big game-winning touchdown pass, but it happens, I guess. But Stephon Diggs, really kind of leading the committee there with a couple other people thrown in between. James Cook finding some success in the receiving game. Defensively, Bills, had a hard time. It was a hard-fought game for the Bills defense to really keep up with the Eagles. And especially when Jalen Hurts, the stats don't look impressive, but Jalen Hurts looked like he was, just very calm. They got into good field position. That's all they needed, really. DeAndre Swift was very efficient. Jalen Hurts, of course, rushed multiple times, not just for the tush push or whatever. Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown both got some love, but Devonta Smith more so by a long shot. Defensively, the Eagles, I can't say it was a great game for them either. Both teams kind of made it slower. That's all the defenses did. There was no big sacks, no big really impactful sacks. I think there's one pick. Yeah, I think one pick in this whole game. Where did Jalen Hurts throw a pick? Let's see. No, there's 2 picks in this whole game. There's 2 picks, so yeah, that happens there. But I just felt like the defenses slowed down the offenses a little bit in terms of incompletions and stuff like that, and pressures. It made it more reliant on a couple yard rushings from both of the running backs, or not the running backs, the quarterbacks, which Josh Allen utilized better than Jalen Hurts. But beside the point, it was a very fun game to watch in prime time. And it was a hell of a game. The Eagles squeaked it out and probably going to get the NFC 1 seed. While the Bills, they need to figure out something fast. That's all I can really say. They have bye week this week, and about 5 games after that they need to worry about, or 4 games, 5 games, 5 games they need to worry about to make the playoffs. And they just got to take it one step at a time from this point. So I'll be honest, I don't know why I said the Bills game was on primetime. Definitely wasn't. I just kind of came out as if it was a primetime game. Should have been the primetime game, but beside the point. Chiefs, of course, won 31-17 against the Raiders. Nothing too special here. Patrick Mahomes, 2 touchdowns, 298 yards. Isaiah Pacheco found the end zone a lot with the rushing game. Rashee Rice actually led the receiving game here. No Justin Watson game, but Justin Watson did find the end zone, so credit to him. Travis Kelce, of course, continues to be a big factor in this offense. Defensively, the Chiefs are just fine. I think there's a little bit less of a game for them. They struggled early on, honestly. The Raiders kind of had their number in the beginning. But the Raiders ultimately kind of threw it near the end. Aidan O'Connell actually have a decent game. I got to give some credit to Aidan O'Connell. He might not be the worst QB in the whole league, so that's pretty good. Josh Jacobs, very efficient. I'm glad the Raiders are utilizing him the way they need to be. But they're kind of only putting pressure on him. They need to they should have some other good running backs behind him if they're going to really do something in the committee wise. Jacoby Myers ended up getting a couple more yards than Devontae Adams, but both of them are a pretty good receiving committee with Hunter Renfrow, a nice little supplemental receiver there. Defensively, the Raiders did nothing. I know they got a sack. I could think they got the same amount of sacks as the Chiefs, but it wasn't really. It's hard to describe. It really wasn't a defensive game. It was just a inefficient offense game for both of them. Raiders, they still have a shot for the playoffs, but I think with the amount of caliber teams are in the AFC, I think they've kind of are going to be on the lower end of things. While the Chiefs, they could easily be knocked off with the amount of good teams in the AFC. I'm not saying they will miss the playoffs. They're definitely going to make the playoffs, but one little loss in the playoffs are going to lead to them not making the Super Bowl. And so it's kind of fun and interesting to see that the landscape has changed that much. Meanwhile, the primetime game of the Ravens and Chargers, 20-10. I actually didn't catch much of this one. I was at the gym. Lamar Jackson looked like he had a fine game. I did catch a couple highlights, but nothing else too special. Kept up with the updated stats as things went on, so I can kind of get a little bit of reference there, but otherwise not too much. Does look like Keaton Mitchell was officially taken over as running back 1 with Gus Edwards kind of as the easy running back 2. I guess I shouldn't say that with only 1 carry difference. It could have just mean a different play style. But Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell basically just splitting the backfield with Justice Hill getting involved a little bit. But I love the committee they have here. It's as much as I want Keaton Mitchell to get more love because he's in my fantasy league. He's on my team in my fantasy league. I think it's really smart to have Gus Edwards, the heavy, Keaton Mitchell, the explosion, and Justice Hill, the receiving. Honest to God, I like that a lot, and I wish they would use Justice Hill more in the receiving game. Beside the point, use Keaton Mitchell a little bit there and Gus Edwards, but whatever. Beside the point, Isaiah Likely, of course, taking more of the role from Mark Andrews. He'll kind of ease himself back into that role. He's not the best tight end in the league by far, but he could be that answer that Lamar Jackson really needs. Defensively, though, the Ravens actually had a little bit less of a stellar game, but they did fine. It was again more of a sluggish game, so I can't really say they weren't splashy, but they were just fine. Justin Herbert and the Chargers overall did not play to the standards they needed to this game to really keep up with a high caliber team like the Ravens, especially defensively. But beside the point, Justin Herbert not having the stellar game here. Rushing game from Austin Eckler was very lackluster, but they really didn't have much chance to do the run game. Keenan Allen continues to be number 1 option. Everybody else gets a little bit of the crumbs left over. Defensively, like I said, the Chargers really just did not do much of anything to keep the big run explosions from the Ravens there. Khalil Mack got 2 sacks, so that's good, I guess. But overall, the Chargers are just losing more and more momentum. I think with this loss, with the performance they did, I think that kind of kills any momentum they could have, and I think that they're going to end up spiraling into more of a 4-8, 4-9, maybe 5-9 type team. And by the end of the season, we'll see where they land. But Chargers, I think, have just lost all momentum they can, while the Ravens are picking up more and more and fighting for that number 1 seed. So it's really awesome to see the top of the AFC getting so competitive with that. Finally, the last game of the week. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because it's fine, I guess. It exists. Justin Fields back, of course, 217 yards, no picks, no touchdowns. Fine, ball on the ground, he was good. Not really utilizing anybody but himself in the run game, but beside the point. DJ Moore, though, with Justin Fields coming back, does receive a lot of the benefits of it. Cole Kmet also got a little bit involved. Defensively, this was not secondary. 3 picks. I don't know how much of that was on the defense of the Bears doing well, more so than Josh Dobbs, just looking absolutely horrid. I don't know how you go from a really high caliber, like, oh my gosh, people getting behind him, to Josh Dobbs throwing 4 interceptions. Again, I think one of those picks, if I recall, again, I didn't watch much of this game, I'll be honest with you, was a more of a longer pass, like desperate type throw. Can't give him too much credit or discredit there. And I believe another one was like a tipped off unfortunate pick, so I can't give him too much discredit there. But still, it leaves you 2 picks of just stupidity after all the other things. The run game didn't get anything going because you were obviously trying to play against the Bears, which you would think would utilize the run game more. But beside the point, especially with the committee of Ty Chandler and Alexander Madison, who can be decently good. But instead, you just kind of rely on Josh Dobbs. And I'm not saying Josh Dobbs is bad. I'm not saying he's, from one bad performance, he's just the worst quarterback in the league. But he's just, people are too hyped on him. People were too hyped on him. Even I was getting there because I like seeing Vikings win. And then finally, obviously the Broncos lost. I was saying it was more of a joke for the Broncos as a Broncos fan. But the Vikings loss against the Broncos kind of solidified them losing all momentum. They really need to keep up here. And 6-6 is still not horrible, especially keeping up in that 7th seed for the playoffs. But I think they still are 7th seed. But it's just they're losing momentum. If they lose to teams like the Bears, they're gonna fall off real quick now and probably be a first round out in the playoffs, even if they make it. The Bears, meanwhile, I think there's a lot of good for them to look forward to. I think the Bears are slowly picking up pieces together, and Justin Fields can be better and better as time moves forward. And I don't think Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. I think the Bears just need to continue riding with him for now. Right now, you can't just go and invest in a quarterback after quarterback. Justin Fields is fine. And while it may be tempting to get that number 1 spot and go for Caleb Williams or whoever else, it might be better for you overall to maybe just get more value around your QB and build a committee that your quarterback can work with. I don't know what the answer is. I can't tell you whether Justin Fields is the guy or not, but the Bears have to make a decision on that, and Justin Fields is making it difficult on them. It's simple what I can say there. Beside the point, that kind of ends these games. And overall, week 12 of the 16 games, very interesting, a lot of up and downs, a lot of good games, a lot of bad games, a lot of in between. So interesting there. Of course, that quick little segment of me just going through all the playoff stuff, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through it all and kind of see the current standings. Ravens finally are still up at the top of the AFC with the number 1 seed. Chiefs a little bit behind them with 8-3, of course, being the 2nd seed. Jacksonville still leading their division 8-3, and Dolphins, of course, leading their division 8-3. Steelers now, though, up all the way to the 5 seed. Which is really cool. Browns are right behind them, though, with that loss to the Broncos at 6 seed. Well, the Colts are officially the 7 seed currently, which is awesome to see. But as you see, there are 3 pretty good contenders even right behind the Colts, Browns, Steelers. Which, honestly, between the Steelers, Browns, Colts, Texans, Broncos, Bills, those 6 teams easily could all swap. Like the Texans, Broncos, Bills could easily also just be in the playoffs instead of those 3 teams. Obviously, the Steelers and Browns have a little bit more advantage with the extra win there. But with some key matchups here coming up, that could really change with the Texans, Broncos, and Bills really looking to finally solidify that playoff spot. Because I think all 6 of those teams, maybe outside the Colts, are ready to win a playoff game. I guess the Browns less so too because of their quarterback situation. But beside the point, Bengals, Raiders, Chargers, and Titans all still kind of fighting for that crumbs of like some opportunity, kind of the outside looking in. But they could still make it. They still have some opportunity to do so. And you got Jets and Patriots pretty much out of it. I'm not gonna I kind of consider the Jets out of it more so than outside the bubble, probably. Either way, Patriots are also out. But no one's out of the playoffs just yet. And the AFC overall, no one's solidified their spot just yet. Meanwhile, in the NFC, Eagles, of course, number 1 seed. 49ers, Lions, and Falcons leading their divisions. Falcons at 5 and 6 is crazy to me. But being a 4 seed, I mean, it happens. I mean, it is what it is. Cowboys, Seahawks, and Vikings pretty much in a very good spot for their playoffs, their respective playoff spots, but you can't really count out the Packers or maybe even the Rams at times. I think you can pretty much count out the Saints, Bucks in terms of wild card spot. They're really fighting for that division leading spot more than anything. I just think that these teams are going to overall lose more games than they're going to win. For the most part, I think one team might end up 9-8, but beside the point. And I think the Saints still have probably the best opportunity, but again, it's really just. I think the NFC is pretty much solidified at their 7 teams. The Packers are the only team I could see possibly clinching and knocking out the Vikings, knocking out maybe the Seahawks. I think the Cowboys have made it, so it's really Seahawks, Vikings, Packers really fighting for it. The Rams have a small chance too, but I wouldn't count on it. Meanwhile, you kind of got the committee of 4-7, 4-8 type teams right here that are maybe could do it, but probably not. You got Cardinals and Panthers who aren't out of it just yet, but basically are type of deal. So that's the current playoff picture there. Meanwhile, if we look at the chances here, no one's is at 99 or 0. I'm just going to quickly scan through it. But, I mean, obviously the obvious teams of the good records are pretty much 99, 80 plus. Interesting one is that the Steelers are at 78%, which is fascinating. By the way, this percentage right here in this middle column is like the actual percentage that they can make the playoffs. The rest of it, I don't really consider really important as of right now. There's nobody else really in the conversations, but there's like 5 teams, 6 teams, 7 teams that are less than 1% chance of making the playoffs, which is obvious. Anybody 4-7 or 4-8 pretty much are out. But 99% for most of the teams that are. Oh no, Eagles have officially clinched it. Look at that. Didn't notice that. Eagles have officially clinched it this week. Eagles are the first team to officially move on to the playoffs. I guess based on the how far the wild cards are down, the Eagles physically cannot not make it. I guess with some of the tiebreakers that they have, because it's 5 wins over pretty much the outside the 7 seed. So yeah, I guess that would make sense. So Eagles have officially made the playoffs. I almost didn't see that. So really cool. Other than that, I mean, you can go through. It's on the New York Times if you want to see the actual chances. But that's pretty much everything so far. I might do a video of the path to the postseason, but I'm not too sure. That seems like something I'm not as keen on doing. Meanwhile, we have one more thing I'm going to do. Eliminator Challenge, of course, every week. I'm still in it, 12-0 right now, with 14,000 people still in it, I believe. So pretty good shot so far, and actually making a lot of people were eliminated this week thanks to that Bears-Vikings game, which I told you was a trap. Surviving 14,695 people. And I'm one of them. I probably won't win the tiebreakers. My tiebreaker is not very good, I'll be honest. My tiebreaker record is not very good. But I'm picking teams that win. That's all that matters to me. I'm probably going to pick the Steelers this week. Is knowing this 32% picking the Steelers makes me kind of nervous because I'm like, ooh, does that mean like a lot of people are going to get, moved on? But for one, the teams I would take, maybe the Cowboys or the Seahawks. I obviously can't use the Cowboys anymore. Chargers over Patriots, probably wouldn't pick that one at all. Don't want to touch that. Bucks over Panthers. It's a divisional matchup, and the Panthers are going to win a second game. And I don't know which game it's going to be, but that one could be it. Titans Colts, wouldn't touch that one. Saints Lions, I would lean Lions. I probably would pick the Lions just straight up after a loss like that, but beside the point. 11% of people picking the Jets over the Falcons. Fucking insane. I don't know. I would feel more confident in the Falcons winning that. I probably would pick the Falcons to win that. Beside the point. Texans Broncos is a tough one to bet on because Broncos are hot, but Texans are good. So I don't know what you really want to say there. Wouldn't touch 49ers Eagles. Probably wouldn't touch Browns Rams. Chiefs Packers. Obviously Chiefs are probably the best. Honestly, if you saw the Chiefs, you'd pick them. Jags Bengals. Would probably lean Jags, but obviously everything I've used so far is nothing but the Steelers and Cardinals. Is the game I'm going to pick because I just think the Steelers look a lot better now. Defense of the Steelers looks really good. I could be one of the 32% eliminated here. I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably the most nervous week I have because I don't really have an easy game. This kind of goes into my second category of like I feel fine but not comfortable picking this. So I'll be rooting for the Steelers this week and hopefully moving on to week 13. Beside the point, this video has run for a hot minute, for at least for my recording wise. I don't know how much I'll be chopping it up into. But thank you guys for watching NFL Week 12 recap. Tune in tomorrow for our predictions, I believe. Should be recording predictions tonight, which will lead to upload tomorrow. And power rankings after that with NFL Imperialism coming out sometime this week. Probably Friday is what I'll aim for. Beside the point, guys, StraightA Dawson, out.